All right, so here are some of my experiences at the homeless shelter, the Bethlehem Inn in Bend, Oregon. Now, I had never really had any experience with homelessness or the lifestyle, any of the community that's involved with it, um, but I'd grown up in the church, so I had an idea of how religious people should act, and with a name like Bethlehem Inn, you know, I figured um, it'd be ran with compassion and understanding, and that definitely is not the case. I was telling a gal after a couple stays about my horror stories, and she was like, "Well, it's really ironic because Jesus had to be born in a manger because Bethlehem didn't have any room for him." All right, so I was kicked out. The stories I'll tell you about 3 times, and then I knew of, in a very short period of time, 4 employees that worked there that were fired for some pretty bad indiscretions. The first time I got kicked out, so I was staying there for the very first time, and I told them um, I had to go an hour away to Madras for court, but the bus wouldn't in the morning wouldn't get me there on time for my appearance. So I'd have to stay at my mom's in Culver, and then I could get a ride to court and then come back the next day. And they were like, "Oh yeah, no, yeah, definitely, just fill out an overnight slip, get it approved, and you're good to go." So I come back, and one of the staff stops me in the parking lot, and she was like, "Hey, Maury, where were you last night?" And I was like, I explained, what happened, and I was like, "Yeah, now I'm back." And she's like, "You can't have overnight stays for the first 30 days you're staying here." I was like, "Right." They explained that, but with my circumstances, I guess they approved it. She's like, "No, no, they didn't." I was like, "Yeah, they did." She's like, "No, they didn't." It's like, "Yeah, I saw him fill it out and file it and everything." And she was like, "Where?" So we go to the office, and I point to the filing cabinet, and she goes and she's rummaging, and she pulls it out. And I was like, "Oh man," because paperwork gets lost, like, phew. So she's looking at it, and she looks up, and she's like, "He doesn't work here." I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, he's a volunteer. He's not staff. He can't approve this." I have no idea. Just some guy, signed it, and so I guess they have residents that will volunteer to work the front desk, especially at night and stuff. But I didn't know this, and so I explained to her, just like some crazy guy filled out my form for me and filed it away, and she was like, "I don't believe you. There's no way that you didn't know that he was a volunteer." Is the first couple of days of them staying there, I had no idea. She's like, "Rules are rules. You got to go." So they kicked me out. Second time, I'm staying there. They say that they're cracking down on missed case management meetings, and they just ask you like how long you're staying there, if you're working, and you give them an update and stuff. Most of the time, they would just do it in passing, like literally, like you would be walking by in the parking lot, and they'd stop you, ask you a couple questions, fill out the form right there, and it was done. Well, the questions that they ask at the case management meeting, they'd ask me at my intake. So I didn't know if I still needed to. I'd only been there, a day or two. And so I asked the staff, and they were like, "Okay, we'll put it in the log, and your case manager will get a hold of you." Well, so 2 days later, like, no one had gotten a hold of me. So I went back to staff, and the gal I was talking to was actually my case manager, and she's like, "Oh shoot, like, I didn't read the log. That's my bad. So let me schedule you for tomorrow." I was like, "Okay." Well, the next day, I had an interview that they wanted to do right away, and I thought my meeting was later in the afternoon, but I couldn't remember for sure. So I'm calling BI, calling BI, calling BI. Finally, I have to leave a voicemail. I'm just like, hey, I don't know when my meeting is, but I have an interview. Hopefully we can work around this. You can get a hold of me, And I do the interview. I bust my butt back to the BI, and I tell the staff, like that I had been calling and I had an interview and stuff. And the gal I talked to took me in the office, and she's like, I don't think you're taking this very seriously. And I was like, I explained about, me getting a hold of the staff to finally get the meeting scheduled and stuff. That I had 6 interviews in my first week. I got 4 job offers, very first week staying there. And I'd met with like housing assistance programs and stuff. And I she's like, well, it took you, 2 days to get this meeting. And obviously you're procrastinating or something. And I was like, no, I scheduled it as soon as I could, as soon as I could get a hold of my case manager. And she's like, don't talk about staff like that. I'll be right back. And she goes and gets the guy that kind of runs the place. So he comes in, and he's like, it doesn't sound like you're taking this very seriously. So I explain the whole spiel again, and then he responds in the exact same way. He's like, don't talk about staff like that. Like, ask her, And he's like, no, we are no longer a housing option for you, and kicks me out. So the third time I get kicked out, I'll tell you about the 4 write-ups I got. So they decide that now they're going to crack down on people missing their morning chore. And they're like, it's not 3 strikes, you're out. It's 1 and done. 1 strike, you're out. Well, the next day, one of the residents that's staying in our room is like, hey, I know all your guys' names. Like, you want me to see if you're on the morning chore list? And we're like, yeah, we didn't have to get up for a bit. So he comes back, and he's like, no one's on the list. Well, I come back from work, and I have a write-up. I'm getting kicked out for missing my morning chore. And so, on my way out, I stop one of the staff, and I'm like, hey, one of the residents that's in our room told me that I wasn't on the chore list. Otherwise, I would have totally checked. Ultimately, the responsibility is mine. I just wanted to let you know that I didn't flake out or something. And well, I didn't tell him his name or anything. I wasn't trying to throw him under the bus. But luckily, he had overheard it, and he comes running over. He's like, no, yeah, I didn't know how he spelled his name. I guess I didn't see it on the list. That's my bad, And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll throw this out. I was like, oh man, cool. Second time I get written up, so we have Saturday chores, which is like a deep clean. You have to clean the whole room, and then you have like an extra chore, that you do for the facility or whatever. Well, all my roommates took off for the day already, and so you can get kicked out if you don't do your chore. So I was doing everyone's chore, and the way that it's set up, so I was on the top in the middle of the motel, but this side is like the girls' side. So the stairs are at the end. I have to go all the way around the end and then all the way across the parking lot. And it's a really hot day, so I'm going back and forth, and I'm doing all the chores, and one of the staff sees me, and he's like, hey, Maury, what are you doing? I was like, well, just doing my chore. And he was like, oh, because it looks like you're doing everyone's chore. I was like, no, I'm just finishing mine up, He's like, okay. So I sign everyone's name for him, and I come back that day, and I'm written up for not doing my Saturday chore. And so I go to the gal that wrote me up, and she'll come back into play later. But I'm like, I totally did my chore, and she was like, well, there were drops on the toilet seat. And I was like, well, yeah, like I did it in the morning, and so obviously between then and your inspection, someone used the bathroom. And she was like, well, then you have to clean closer to inspection time, and the times can fluctuate like hours, and so I was like, no, actually, I asked staff specifically um, about that because I wanted to do the chores in the morning and the inspection wasn't until the afternoon. And they were like, no, we can tell if you clean, even if someone is in the room and maybe makes a little bit of a mess, like, you'll be fine. She's like, nope, now you know. She's gonna kick me out. Well, I'm at the office, and the staff that saw me doing my chores, um, and like I'm sweating and stuff, and he saw me busting butt, and I was like, dude, they're gonna kick me out for not doing my morning or my Saturday chore. And he's like, that's not right. So he goes and he comes back and he's like, they're throwing that out. Don't worry about it. Okay. So the third time I get written out. Now, I had stayed there quite a few times by now. I had a run of really bad luck. I was always working, but I'd stay at the shelter, save up my money, get a car, lose the car, go back to the shelter, save up money, buy another car, and I was staying out of my car. Well, I lost 5 cars in a year and a half. And then while I was staying there, I had a lot on my mind, a lot on my shoulders. So I didn't engage much at all. I didn't associate. I didn't go out of my way. I was like a hermit, and I start coming out of my shell finally. And I'm working, so I have money, and I need to catch up on some movies anyway. So like I would rent movies, and we'd do like a movie night, and everyone always complained about the snacks because they'd get like expired snacks from gas stations or Safeway or whatever, and it was just always junk food, and they were like, they're trying to poison us and stuff. So I'd get veggie trays and snacks and stuff, and then I would do side projects for them, and people did them for bus passes, but I had a monthly bus pass, so I didn't need them. I just give them away. Like they had gravel for the smoking area and the picnic tables, and they wanted to put like a cinder block barrier around it, and so we did that all day one time. And then with the night chores, cleaning up the kitchen and stuff, I'd noticed when I was doing my chores that people would be really rude to the newbies that didn't know where anything was or how to do anything, and so that really bothered me. And then the staff schedule people, and they make their list, and they'd always schedule people that were injured, like, or handicapped, and or they were gone at work, or people just like wouldn't show up for their chore and stuff. So I stayed after every night, and I was working and stuff, but I wanted to help out, and I was for weeks, and they wouldn't schedule me for morning chores or anything for weeks. And I mean, you're usually supposed to do a chore like once a week kind of thing. But yeah, so they have some bunk beds they need built for the family units, and I volunteered to help out. And they're like, all right after dinner. I was like, oh, but I have I'm on the chore list. And they're like, oh, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. Okay, so we're up building the bunk beds, and the gal that had been trying to write me up this whole time came in the room, and I'm like around the corner, so she doesn't really see me, and she bursts in the door and tells the other staff that we're working with, like, hey, guess who I get to kick out? He didn't do his chore. And she like looks and she sees me, and she's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, helping her. and she's like, and the other staff is like pushing her out the door, and they go outside, and she comes back in, and she's like, don't worry about it, I took care of it. I was like, okay, that was wild, but whatever. So they're supposed to throw it out. Well, then I do get signed up for a morning chore on the weekend. I'm trying to use the bathroom, but they're cleaning it. So I run across the parking lot, literally. Go to the bathroom, I run back, and someone's mopping, doing my chore. I was like, hey, that's my chore, man. He's like, I'm already doing it, and someone already went to tell staff that you didn't do your chore anyway. And I was like, I left to go to the bathroom, whatever. So I go and tell staff, and I was like, you can check the cameras. I was there to do my chore. I just had to go to the bathroom, and I came right back. And they're like, well, it's just one and done. You're out. And I was like, dude, I've been voluntarily doing chores every night for weeks. I'm helping you guys with the side projects and stuff. And they're like, well, you already got written up 3 times for missing chores, so we're gonna stick to it. And I was like, no, they're supposed to throw those out. And they're like, well, don't throw them out, it's still in the logbook. I was like, can I talk to the manager or something? It's Friday, and they're like, he's not gonna be here till Monday. Like, you ever heard of a telephone? And they're like, no, we're not gonna call him. So I get kicked out, and that was my 3rd time. Now, in a very short period of time, in the times that I'd stayed there, I knew 4 staff members that got fired. So one of them was dealing heroin. I don't know if she was dealing it out of the shelter, but it was the gal that was trying to write me up that whole time. And I had actually met someone that knew her, because I was staying at the BI, and I told them, and they were like, oh yeah, she's actually really mad at us. She had given his boyfriend thousands of dollars to get an ounce of heroin in Portland or something, and they blew it, and he was like, I didn't even know, and now she's mad at me. Well, I was like, that's crazy. I do a one-off job, and the guy offered me a ride after work, and I recognized his wife that was giving me a ride, and so we're talking about the BI and stuff, and she's like, oh, we actually just got someone fired. I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, she had kicked one of our friends out, and we were like, why is she kicking people out when she's got the same heroin connect as us? And I guess the staff investigated, and they called her, and they were like, hey, you need to come in and get a UA. And she refused. So she got fired. Another gal, she was a lesbian, and she would invite young girls from the shelter to come to go live with her. And she'd get them all strung out on drugs and stuff, give them everything under the sun, and then use them and kick them out. And it was making people really mad, so they reported her. She got fired for fraternization. The 3rd guy, he had gotten a report from a gal that I was calling her a fangirl in like a derogatory way, which I always thought was a compliment, like my buddy who was staying there, I was like, hey, if I called you a Star Wars fanboy, what would you say? He was like, oh, represent, But the staff member approached me, and he was like, hey, I've been picked on for playing video games and stuff. I know what it's like to get bullied. And dude, whatever. Well, so he has a chip on his shoulder, and we're in the kitchen. I'm standing in front of a closet, but I'm looking over here at something, so I don't see him over here. And he comes up, and he kind of pushes me aside, he doesn't push me hard or anything, but I'm like, dude, don't touch me. He goes on and does his thing, and I'm doing mine. And a gal comes up and she's like, "Dude, I saw the whole thing. That's messed up." And I was like, "Right?" She was like, "No, like you need to report him." I was like, "No." And she's like, "Well, I am." And I guess they checked the cameras, and they saw him put hands on me, so they fired him. I ended up catching up with him way later, and a lot of these staff members actually, and we get along, shake hands. We'll stop and BS for a little bit, you know. But the fourth guy I want to talk about, he actually ran the place. So I had gotten a car, gotten a job, I had a place, so I left the BI. And when you leave the BI, you can't come back for 30 days. So um, I wrecked my car and I came back, and it was like 25 days. So I was like 5 days short of the 30 days or whatever. And I was hoping they could make an exception. I didn't have a tent. I didn't have a sleeping bag, you know. So I explained my situation. The guy comes back, and not another staff member um, comes back, and he's like, "Yeah, no, sorry, man, they're not gonna let you stay." And I was like, I mean, I get it, you know, technically, but I don't know what I'm gonna do, you know. And he was like, "No, you know what? This is messed up." He told me that they had one guy that was staying at the BI, got drunk, arrested for drunk and disorderly, was in jail for 10 days, and they let him come back. And then um, some guys were smoking weed on the property, and they've got family units and stuff, so there are kids, and it's a big no-no. And they let them come back after 15 days. And then he was like, "Here you are, you know, doing the right thing, doing everything you need to try and get back on your feet, and they're gonna get hung up on this technicality." And so he leaves. He comes back. It's been a while. And he's just checking up, and he was like, "Hey, so a lot of the staff are really upset about this, and we're looking into it. So hang tight." And a while later, he comes back, and he was like, "They actually like let the guy go, you know, who was running the place." Um, and I was like, "Whoa! I did not see that coming." I mean, it was awesome that I got to stay, you know, and I was psyched because he was kind of a monster, honestly. And so I was hoping there were like going to be some big changes, and like big positive changes and stuff. And when it didn't happen, I was talking to staff about it, and they were like, "No, she didn't want to make any big positive changes. She was just making a power move, and that was her excuse, you know." And I was like, "Oh, I thought she was like trying to do a good thing and do some more good things for people and stuff." No. Now, when I got kicked out the very first time, um, I was pissed. I could not believe that they were gonna put me out on the streets, you know, for something like that. Well, I'm walking by the guy who ran the place at the time, and he's like glaring at me in the parking lot, and it irked me. So I was like, "Hey, what's your success rate around here? Like 25%?" He was like, "Ha, I wish." He just keeps laughing like I told the funniest joke in the world. And what what really bothers me is that they actually do have housing programs for the houseless that have like 67% success rates. I mean, incredible difference. And what it is like, so the BI will UA people and give them breathalyzers and stuff, and basically they want you to be doing good in order for them to help you. But um, in these other cities, some of these shelters realize like, no, there are fundamental needs that people have. You give them those, and then you work on the sobriety, you know. So it's like housing first. You give them housing, they get work, they start going to programs and engaging, you know, in the community and stuff, and they now have housing, food, and support to get sober. So a little bit more realistic of a way to go about things. But what what I see is like the state dumping money into these revolving doors. You know, these people are just cycling in and out. You see the same people at the shelter year after year, you know? And I know that a lot of people have their thoughts about homeless people, but we should be looking at how we're dealing with the issue and, you know, really wonder, like, what does that say about us as a society? Thank you.